Imagine standing in the eye of the storm at a time when Rome was still a young republic, no grand castles or towering walls, yet poised to prove that its name would echo for centuries. While ordinary citizens jostled in the markets and enjoyed festivals behind the scenes, kings and generals were plotting the fate of millions. You, accustomed to the peace and safety of your streets, would you have the courage to face an alliance forged by Philip V of Macedon and Hannibal Barca, the very man who terrorized Rome with war elephants? Picture the anxiety of knowing that at any moment an enemy fleet could cross the Adriatic and seasoned troops march through your gates. How would you protect your family, your city, and your way of life? In this video, we'll show you step by step how the Roman Republic responded, forging alliances with Greek city-states, overhauling its legions, innovating with naval tactics, and ultimately confronting the feared Macedonian phalanx in decisive battles. You'll see how the cunning of leaders like Titus Quinctius Flamininus and Lucius Aemilius Paullus turned fear into confidence and threat into triumph. But before we dive into these stories and secrets of the Roman Empire, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit the bell. That way, you won't miss any of our videos packed with ancient Rome's secrets and surprises. And now, discover how Philip V and Hannibal joined forces in a forbidden pact, the spark that ignited the First Macedonian War. The double threat, Philip V and Hannibal Barca. Philip V, still young on the Macedonian throne, watched the Second Punic War unfold. When rumors reached him that Hannibal Barca had crossed the Alps with elephants, Philip saw a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to join the legendary Macedonian phalanx with Carthage's war machine. In secret, the two generals exchanged emissaries, planning a two-pronged offensive, the phalanx advancing through Illyria while Hannibal's elephants landed in Italy. If successful, this combination could crush Rome at a single stroke. In Rome, the memory of Cannae was fresh. 50,000 men slaughtered under Hannibal's cavalry. The Senate panicked at news of a Macedonian-Carthaginian pact. Consul Titus Quinctius Flamininus was dispatched on a diplomatic mission to Greece, persuading the Aetolian League and the Kingdom of Pergamon to side with Rome. Meanwhile, Marcus Valerius Levinus strengthened the Roman fleet on the Adriatic coast, stationing ships and watchtowers to block any enemy landing. Illyria became the chessboard of war. Philip hastily built a large, albeit rudimentary fleet, while Rome wove alliances. With reluctant Greeks, Roman spies infiltrated ports and merchant caravans, reporting every Macedonian move. Confrontation was inevitable. On one side, the arrogance of a marching phalanx. On the other, the resolve of legions trained to fight on any terrain. Despite the truce, Philip's ambitions stayed ablaze, and the decisive clash was just beginning. Siege and surprise at Apollonia. Perched between sheer cliffs and the Adriatic Sea, Apollonia was Rome's deepest stronghold in Illyria. Confident in his phalanx's might and his powerful siege engines, Philip V began the siege. Sappers tunneled under the walls, while catapults and battering rams were positioned to smash gates and towers. By midday, the sun beat down on both defenders and attackers, but the Macedonian king believed it would only take weeks to silence Apollonia. However, the narrow streets and alleys of Apollonia thrummed with resistance. Roman officers, aided by local auxiliaries, formed small urban guerrilla bands. Under the cover of darkness, Titus Quinctius Flamininus personally led a detachment of legionaries and Apollonian peltasts. One team sabotaged siege engines, while another set fire to powder and ammo depots. Within hours, some 3,000 Macedonian soldiers were killed or captured, many stunned by the crashing walls and sudden explosions. At dawn's first light, Philip's makeshift fleet found itself blockaded by Marcus Valerius Levinus's Roman triremes, preventing any escape by sea. The phalanx, shocked and disorganized, panicked and retreated in chaos, Within hours, Oricus fell to Rome, and Philip was forced into a humiliating truce, ceding territory and influence. This victory proved Rome ruled not only the land, but the waves of the Adriatic. But that truce gave Rome little breathing room, because in the heart of Hellas, fresh conspiracies would reignite the fires of war. Diplomacy and the Second Macedonian War. With Apollonia secured, Rome celebrated, but Philip V was far from defeated. In secret, he rearmed his phalanx and sent emissaries to Antiochus III of the Seleucid Empire, offering mutual support to dominate the Aegean. In Athens and Rhodes, rumors of this pact sounded the alarm. Rome, still weary from fighting Carthage, now faced two Hellenic giants, when diplomats from Rhodes and Pergamon brought irrefutable evidence of the Seleucid Macedonian alliance to the Senate. Public opinion shifted. Consul Titus Quinctius Flamininus proclaimed himself the liberator of Greece and spoke in the Hellenic Agoras, comparing Philip to Hannibal and Pyrrhus. His fiery speeches rallied the Aetolian League and other city-states, reinforcing the notion that Rome fought for freedom, not conquest. Under political and military pressure, Philip agreed to negotiate. In 205 BC, the Treaty of Phenice ended this phase. He retained his throne, but surrendered his fleet, disbanded mercenaries, and was forbidden to forge new alliances. Rome demonstrated it could win battles with diplomacy as much as with the sword. This treaty shook the Mediterranean. Give this video a like and discover the decisive battle that would seal Rome and Macedon's fate. Preparations for Cynoscephalae. While Philip V drilled his phalanx and garrisoned key towns in Thessaly, Titus Quinctius Flamininus landed at Dodona to a hero's welcome. He pardoned civic debts, freed prisoners of war, and funded festivals in Zeus's sanctuaries, earning the trust of the Greek city-states. At the same time, the Senate dispatched veteran legions, battle-hardened in Macedon, and contingents of skilled Aetolian archers and peltasts adept at mountainous terrain. Spies scouted in every direction. Disguised couriers captured battle plans and tracked Cretan mercenary patrols, securing Philip's supply lines. Nicanor, Philip's trusted general, raised standards on strategic hills, overseeing valleys and passes. In contrast, Flamininus selected high ground for his light cavalry and veteran archers, poised to strike enemy lines at the perfect moment. Dawn patrols, night watches, and artillery platforms took shape. Beneath diplomatic pleasantries lay generals' tense anticipation of an inevitable clash. The fog-shrouded hills of Cynoscephalae became the chessboard on which Rome and Macedon would contest not just land, but control of the entire Mediterranean. If you're enjoying this epic immersion into the tactics that changed history, leave a like and share it with anyone who loves military strategy. The fog can conceal movements, but nothing will hide the epic clash about to unfold. The Battle of Cynoscephalae. In the misty pre-dawn, Macedonian scouts scaled the ridges of Cynoscephalae to secure the high ground. Anticipating this move, Flamininus dispatched cohorts of Hastati and Principes to intercept. Among gnarled trees and damp rocks, the fog masked their approach, until spears and swords clashed in brutal hand-to-hand combat, and cries mixed with the metallic ring of weapons. At sunrise, Philip ordered the phalanx forward. Thousands of sarissas formed a deadly triangle, driving Roman infantry downhill. But the treacherous slopes shattered the Macedonian formation. Each misstep created gaps the Romans eagerly exploited. On the right flank, Aetolian skirmishers hurled javelins with deadly accuracy, while Cretan mercenaries sowed chaos behind enemy lines. When a daring tribune led 2,500 veteran triarii in a flanking and rear assault, the phalanx broke. Roman cavalry and war elephants surged forward, turning resistance into a rout. In hours, some 8,000 Macedonians lay dead, and 5,000 were captured. Philip, seeing his army disintegrate, fled under cover of fog, leaving Cynoscephalae to Rome. Macedon's glory withered on that field, but history still had one final act to play: humiliating peace and a dethroned Philip. In 196 BC, the Roman Senate imposed draconian terms on Philip V. He could remain king, but his navy was capped at 10 triremes, his army cut to 5,000 infantry and 300 cavalry, and he had to hand over hostages as a guarantee of his obedience. Stripped of naval power and under the constant watch of Roman garrisons, Macedon officially became a client state. Returning to Pella, Philip found a fractured court. Once loyal nobles eyed his weakness, and neighboring city-states murmured revolts. Every tribute paid to Rome echoed as a bitter reminder of defeat, and the warrior king's prestige evaporated. Silence reigned in the royal halls, a stark contrast to the celebrations in Athens, where Flamininus was hailed liberator, a mocking refrain in Macedonian chambers. Meanwhile, Rome cemented its control, founding client colonies like Demetrius and Heraclea, redrawing provincial borders and building fortresses in Epirus and Thessaly. Pax Romana took root in Hellenic soil, securing trade routes and imposing Roman law, yet making clear that Greek autonomy depended entirely on Rome's goodwill. Macedon, a shadow of its former self, learned the hard truth. Negotiated freedom can be harsher than war, but Rome's yoke would awaken an heir determined to fight to the very end. Perseus and the Third Macedonian War. Around 179 BC, Perseus, son of Philip V, ascended the Pella throne to a humbled, Roman-dominated Macedon. Determined to restore Antigonid glory, he reconstituted the traditional phalanx with fresh recruits, and Cretan mercenaries reopened the armories and revitalized the cavalry. To cement alliances in the east, he married Laodice, daughter of Seleucus IV of the Seleucid Empire, securing political and military backing from neighboring realms. Word of Perseus's rearmament rang alarm bells in Rome. Envoys demanded he shrink his army and dismantle Macedonian fortresses, commands he vehemently rejected, insisting his people had the right to defend their borders and reclaim their honor. Unwilling to accept defiance, the Senate declared war in 172 BC, igniting the Third Macedonian War. Roman legions, bolstered by Rhodian and Aetolian auxiliaries, marched northward in tight columns, while Perseus built extensive defensive lines. At the pass of Pythium, a strategic mountain choke point, wooden and stone fortifications guarded valleys and paths, and archer outposts watched every narrow pass. Tensions peaked. On one side, a king determined to fight for independence. On the other, a republic poised to crush any resistance. When the spears rise at Pydna, there will be no turning back. The end draws near. The Battle of Pydna. On June 22, 168 BC, Lucius Aemilius Paullus' army took its positions on the broad plains of Pydna, where natural ravines and scattered rocks disrupted the Macedonian phalanx's advance. The uneven ground proved a snare. Each step forced the formation to break, creating gaps the Romans eagerly exploited. At Paullus' signal, the legions opened their ranks into lighter formations for swift maneuvers. As dawn broke, the phalanx pressed forward, its triangle of spears gleaming in the sun, until it became an unwieldy wall on treacherous terrain. Roman cavalry and Greek auxiliaries, from Rhodes, Aetolia, and Patrae, swept around the flanks, severing supplies and tangling sarissas in loose stones. When Perseus tried to regroup his troops, chaos reigned. Legionaries stormed the center, paving the way for veteran triarii, and thousands of Macedonian mercenaries were captured. Perseus fled with his personal guard, but was seized in Samothrace and paraded as a prisoner in Rome. With some 20,000 Macedonian casualties and the phalanx shattered, the Antigonid kingdom vanished. Its lands were carved into client provinces, and Macedonian independence faded into history. With Pydna, Rome didn't just win a battle, it enshrined its empire. Political and cultural consequences. Macedon's final fall at Pydna reshaped the Mediterranean map. Rome divided the former Antigonid realm into client provinces, Thessaly, Macedonia, and Epirus, each overseen by a Roman proconsul, ensuring the Senate's direct influence in every capital. These provinces paid tribute and hosted permanent garrisons, turning former allies into faithful observers of imperial power. Under Pax Romana, safe roads linked ports and villages, boosting trade and the exchange of ideas. Greek merchants sold olive oil and wine along the coast, while Italian craftsmen introduced new pottery styles to Athens. Roman currency circulated freely, standardizing prices and reducing fraud. Culturally, Greek influence became a mark of prestige. In Rome, works by Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates filled patrician libraries. Sculptors carved Hellenic youth in Roman marble. Titus Quinctius Flamininus established Pan-Hellenic games, blending Olympia's festivals with Roman ceremonies, celebrating Greek heritage under Rome's aegis. The Greek language, while secondary, in courts, became essential in philosophical and administrative circles. Meanwhile, Rome implemented true Pax Romana. Aqueducts brought fresh water to coastal towns. Stone bridges spanned valleys, and a network of military roads served both legions and civilian trade. This infrastructure symbolized security and prosperity, proof that Rome's ambition wasn't merely land conquest, but erecting a lasting system. That ancient Macedonian-Carthaginian alliance that once terrified Rome became legend, and under the dove of peace, the Roman Empire marched invincible toward the west. Legacy of the Macedonian Wars. The Macedonian Wars revolutionized military art by proving that a legion's tactical flexibility outmatched a phalanx's brute strength on uneven ground. Rome absorbed these lessons. Legions trained in swift deployments, shifting between tight and open formations as terrain demanded. The mixed infantry model, hastati, principes, and triarii, became the military standard, laying the groundwork for future conquests in Gaul, Hispania, and beyond. Diplomatically, the Senate introduced a new model of control: conditional alliances with city-states, creation of client provinces, and humanitarian interventions under the guise of liberation. Titus Quinctius Flamininus and Lucius Aemilius Paullus embodied this hybrid approach, blending diplomacy and military might. Even today, military academies study their campaigns as prime examples of limited war and political containment. These victories imbued Rome with confidence, paving the way for expansion to the Rhine and Danube. Beyond territory, Rome secured a system of governance and infrastructure, roads, aqueducts, colonies, that held its empire together for centuries. This legacy was more than a military triumph. It was the foundation of an empire that shaped all of Western civilization. If you enjoyed this journey through time and crave more fascinating stories, subscribe to our channel, hit like, and share this video with your friends. You'll help us keep bringing high-quality historical content. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video on ancient Rome and its grand empire.